Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in the principles of success, specifically through multiplication. We're drawing a lot from sources like the power of leverage for financial success. And the mission, really, it's pretty straightforward. We want to understand how the world's most successful people, the Buffetts, Bezoses, Musks, how they manage to get past the limits of, 24 hours in a day in just two hands.
Right.
They don't get there by just adding things up like simple arithmetic. It's all about leverage.
Exactly. And if you look at the source material, leverage is really framed as let's say, the secret of multiplication. It's the strategic wisdom, really, of using resources that aren't just yours. Other people's time, their money, systems, even institutions,
Right.
all to get these kind of extraordinary results you just couldn't achieve alone.
Okay, let's unpack that right away. Because it sounds like the average person tends to operate with an arithmetic mindset. Like, if I want double the income, I guess I need to work double the hours.
That's the default thinking for many, yeah.
But the wealthiest, they seem to have this multiplication mindset. They figure out, okay, if I stop relying only on my own effort, I can unlock, exponential growth.
That's the core idea. And the first big leap usually is leveraging other people's time. We call it OPT.
OPT, okay.
Yeah. I mean, the person who insists on doing absolutely everything themselves, making every single decision, handling every task, they inevitably hit a ceiling. You just can't scale that way. Growth demands delegation.
Right. There's a great historical example. I think the source mentioned Henry Ford. His real genius wasn't just inventing the Model T, right? It was understanding how to multiply his own effort.
Exactly.
He wasn't down there hammering every bolt. He was leveraging the time of thousands of workers through a really standardized system, the assembly line.
Mm-hmm. The system was the lever.
Yeah. And that system multiplied output like crazy, turning the car from this elite luxury item into something everyday people could own.
And that same model works perfectly today. Look at Jeff Bezos. Amazon didn't get huge because he kept packing boxes himself in the garage.
Right.
He scaled it by leveraging, first, hundreds of thousands of employees, and then, crucially, millions of third-party sellers.
The marketplace.
Yes, leveraging their inventory, their logistics, their time, basically turning a small online bookstore idea into this global economic engine that just runs constantly.
So that kind of exponential growth is really tied to letting go of personal control over every little piece. Okay, so that's time. Let's move to the second sort of human lever. Other people's money, OPM.
OPM, yes.
We sort of touched on this, but it means borrowing for creation, not just consumption.
That distinction is absolutely vital. Borrowing to buy, say, a fancy car that loses value, that's usually a burden. But borrowing strategically to acquire an asset that generates income, that's a true lever.
Okay, but doesn't that line get a bit blurry sometimes?
Yeah.
How does someone listening make sure they're borrowing for creation and not just, finding a fancy excuse to buy something they want?
That's a fair question. I think the key is ensuring that the capital you're borrowing is tied directly to some kind of predictable return mechanism. You need to see how it makes money back.
Okay.
Look at maybe the ultimate master of OPM, Warren Buffett. His empire was largely built by leveraging the insurance business. Specifically, he uses the float.
The float, right? Explain that a bit more. It's not like a standard bank loan, is it?
Not at all. Think of it like this. Customers pay their insurance premiums up front. The insurance company holds that money sometimes for years before they might have to pay out claims.
Okay, so it's just sitting there.
Well, it looks like idle money. But Buffett takes that float, which is essentially free capital for a time, and uses it as investment capital.
Right.
He invests it now, lets it compound, often long before the actual insurance liability comes due.
Wow.
That's turning, potentially billions of dollars of idle money into massive investment returns. Pure OPM used responsibly to generate billions more.
That's quite something. Idle money working harder than you are. And then on maybe a more visible scale, look at Elon Musk. He didn't build Tesla and SpaceX just waiting until he saved up enough cash from PayPal, right?
Absolutely not. These are incredibly capital-intensive businesses.
He leveraged billions. Investor money, government loans, even pre-sales for cars. It feels like if you wait until you personally have all the money needed for something huge,
the opportunity might just pass you by.
Exactly. OPM lets you seize the moment.
Okay, so we've covered leveraging time and money, this sort of human inputs. What comes next?
Well, moving beyond just people and cash, businesses can leverage their operational relationships. And this is where things like suppliers and partners become these really powerful, maybe less obvious levers for growth.
Okay. Like the Walmart example. That's fascinating. Most companies feel pressure to pay their suppliers fast.
Right. Keep suppliers happy.
But Walmart kind of flipped that. They perfected leveraging delayed payments. They get cash from customers immediately at the checkout.
But they pay their suppliers, what, 60 or 90 days later?
Sometimes, yeah. And that time gap, that delay, it effectively gives Walmart this constant stream of interest-free working capital. They're financing their operations, their growth, using their suppliers' money temporarily.
Like a built-in free loan system.
In a way, yes. A self-financing loop.
And this idea of leverage also applies to strategic alliances,
Yeah.
right? Like the Nike and Michael Jordan partnership, Air Jordans.
Classic example.
That partnership instantly gave Nike huge credibility and cultural cachet in basketball.
Yeah.
They didn't have to spend decades building that specific reputation themselves.
Right. They essentially borrowed Jordan's brand power. It multiplied their reach and relevance almost overnight. It's multiplication without duplication. You get the benefit without building it all from scratch.
Okay, so partnerships leverage external credibility. This brings us to maybe the ultimate operational lever, really mastering cash flow. The Michael Dell example comes to mind.
Ah, yes. Dell's cash conversion cycle. Genius, really.
Explain that mechanism. It is built to order, right?
Exactly. So customers paid Dell in advance when they ordered their computer, prepayment.
Okay.
Dell then used that cash, the customer's money, to buy the components needed to build the machine. And crucially, Dell often bought those components on credit terms from suppliers, meaning Dell paid them later.
So wait, they got paid before they spent money.
Precisely. It created what's called a negative working capital cycle. They were using other people's money, both the customers and the suppliers, for free, because cash came in before it went out.
So the company basically funded its own massive expansion without needing tons of traditional bank loans.
Largely, yes. Which raises that really important point. Why steady cash flow is often way more critical than just showing high profits on paper.
Right. Why is that?
Because cash is oxygen for a business. Constant inflow ensures liquidity. You can pay bills, invest, handle surprises. A company might look highly profitable on its income statement, but if its customers pay really slowly...
They could run out of actual cash.
Exactly. They might struggle to meet payroll, miss growth opportunities, or even collapse. Cash flow keeps the engine running. Paper profit is just, well, an accounting number until the cash is in the bank.
Okay, so cash flow solves the immediate financing puzzle.
Yeah.
But managing suppliers, partners, cash cycles, it still needs constant human effort, right? Which is maybe why the next set of levers is so potent. Because they can remove the human from the repetitive parts.
That's the perfect bridge. Technology and scalable systems, these are the ultimate multipliers, precisely because they remove the limits of human time and repetition. A good system works tirelessly.
Bill Gates and Microsoft feels like the archetypal example here. He created software, a system that, once written, could be copied infinitely.
At virtually zero extra cost per copy.
Right. The initial effort was huge, building the software, but then he could sell millions, billions of copies. That's scaling through systems defined.
And we see that principle just amplified massively in today's platforms. Think about Uber. It coordinates millions of rides globally.
Without owning a single car?
Or Airbnb, providing lodging all over the world.
Without owning the property.
Exactly. They built systems, platforms that leverage other people's assets and coordinate them. Even something simpler, like standardization, the McDonald's system, for instance.
Yeah, the Big Mac is the same everywhere.
Mostly. But the point is, the system guarantees a predictable, scalable result. It minimizes the reliance on any single worker's unique skill for the core product delivery. The system delivers.
And then, when you take that systemic power and combine it with globalization, the potential market becomes, well, the entire planet.
Absolutely. Look at Jack Ma and Alibaba. What did he do? He leveraged globalization via a digital platform. He connected millions of small Chinese manufacturers who had basically zero access to international buyers before.
Right.
Connected them to a massive worldwide customer base. He leveraged global demand against decentralized Chinese production capacity, all through a system.
And today's digital networks, they're like the new global infrastructure. You mentioned Kylie Jenner's cosmetics. She didn't need to build physical stores in hundreds of countries.
Nope. She used Instagram, social media, global digital networks for instant market penetration. It multiplied her reach immediately and slashed the huge capital costs tied to traditional retail expansion.
It really drives home that point. The most successful people today are often the most connected, the best orchestrators of systems, not necessarily just the ones working the longest hours.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've painted this picture of leverage as this incredible engine for growth, multiplication, achieving huge things. But we absolutely have to spend time on the warning. Because this isn't foolproof, is it?
Not at all. It's crucial to understand that leverage is profoundly a double-edged sword. It multiplies losses just as easily, sometimes even faster than it multiplies gains.
Right. And the big, sobering example that always comes up is the 2008 global financial crisis.
A catastrophic illustration, yes. It showed what happens when leverage is built on shaky foundations in that case, greed, speculation, and incredibly complex financial instruments tied to mortgages that, frankly, shouldn't have been issued.
So when we hear about reckless leverage with things like complex mortgage-backed securities, basically it was this huge tangled web of borrowing and betting.
A massive interconnected web, yes. Banks and institutions multiplied their potential gains by borrowing heavily against these assets. But when the underlying assets, the housing loans, started failing,
The whole system went down.
the whole system amplified the losses exponentially. Trillions vanished. Economies collapsed. It was leverage turned toxic.
And the source material seems to point to, what, 3 classic errors that lead to this kind of disaster.
Yes, the pattern is often the same. Overconfidence, thinking the good times will last forever. Greed, pushing leverage beyond reasonable limits just to juice returns. And simple neglect, failing to do basic risk management, not building in buffers for downturns.
That reminds me of the Warren Buffett quote.
Ah, the famous one. You only find out who is swimming naked when the tide goes out.
Exactly. When things get tough, when the easy money dries up, that's when foolish, excessive leverage gets brutally exposed.
Precisely. Wisdom and leverage means preparing for the tide to go out.
Okay, so what's the big takeaway here for you listening? It seems we need to master leverage, understand its power, but not fear it to the point of inaction.
That's the balance.
And mastery seems to require discipline, like ensuring any borrowed power, time, money, whatever, is tied directly to a productive, income-generating asset.
Yeah,
And having a clear plan B, right? An exit strategy or a repayment plan.
absolutely. Discipline and prudence are key. True financial success, as we've discussed, it really comes from orchestrating all these resources effectively.
Yeah.
The most successful aren't usually the soloists trying to do everything. They're more like conductors, directing this whole orchestra of other people's time, money, partners, systems, global reach.
That's a great analogy. And being a good conductor requires, well, certain humility, doesn't it? Admitting you can't play every instrument, inviting others, inviting systems to contribute where you're limited.
Humility, yes, and also vision. You need a clear sense of direction to make sure all those different levers are actually pushing towards the same goal, not working against each other.
Okay, so orchestrate, be humble, have vision.
Yeah. And maybe one final thought to leave listeners with. If you do choose to leverage, to consciously use borrowed power, there's that old biblical wisdom. The borrower is servant to the lender.
Proverbs, right?
Proverbs 22.7. It's a reminder that your legacy, your success, won't just depend on your brilliant vision. It'll also depend heavily on how faithfully, how responsibly you manage that borrowed time, that borrowed money, that borrowed trust. So the question to maybe ponder is, what systems will you build starting this week to ensure that the power you borrow remains your servant and never becomes your master?